Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Well, hello and an extremely warm welcome to my channel. I'm Louise Savage of Louise Savage Muses. A warm welcome back if you're a returning viewer, and an equally warm welcome if you are viewing for the very first time. And I have sat beside me today my lovely son Simon.
You do? I
Indeed.
just swear I've got a hat on.
You've got a hat on? What hat are you wearing?
Just moving that forward, there we go.
Oh, lovely.
It's my prize ranking hat.
It's your prize ranking hat.
Yeah.
Careful how you say that, won't you?
I'm being very careful. Always careful on your channel.
Yeah, I wish. So this is probably for me, I don't know what that says about my life, one of the most exciting moments of the year.
You didn't sleep last night.
Oh no. Because Simon and I have met up this weekend with the sole purpose of recording our responses to the shortlist, not only for the Women's Prize for Fiction,
which you'll be able to see on my channel.
Yes, which we haven't filmed yet. We're going to do that next. And for the very first time ever, because it's new, it's inaugural, I like that word. It sounds presidential, I think.
Oh.
So for the very first time, we are going to be able to talk about the shortlist for the Women's Prize for non-fiction.
Should we explain that usually in the past we've read the long list for fiction together?
Yes.
And this year Mum went off on her non-fiction long list adventures and I went off on my long list fiction journey.
Yeah. Okay.
I do think there's a difference between an adventure and a journey.
I think that highlights the difference between us, actually.
Quite
Quite
I think
beautifully.
it possibly highlights the difference between the lists, actually.
Maybe.
It's been controversial this year.
So what we're going to do, I think, is first of all, I think we're going to predict the book that we feel each other will choose as our winner.
Yes.
And then we're going to go through and rank order the books from 6 to 1, because there are 6 books.
And talk about our thoughts on them a little bit. Are we going to match the criteria, which is...
I think for this, because I kind of feel like I've already...
Well, you did in your videos very well with those postcards.
Thank you very much. I'm glad you like postcards.
I did.
You're taking the mic.
No, I liked your blogs. The only thing I will say is I wanted you to do more like what you were doing between when you were reading.
Yeah, okay.
And I think if you're to do anything like that again, I'd like to see more of those vlogs from you anyway.
Them a bit
yeah.
more.
But also just like to see what you're up to, you know, on your beanbags in your garden or...
Yeah, maybe.
Dusting your
Falling off my
bookshelves
beanbag in my
or,
garden.
I don't know.
Dusting.
Pop into Booker.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, that was just a little request from me to you.
Thank you very much. It's good to have suggestions.
And if anyone else would like that, do let Mum know in the comments down below. Sorry, the artist formerly known as my mother in the comments down below.
What I was going to say was, though, certainly when it comes to the rank ordering, because I'll forget this, I'm not going to rank order them in terms of what I think will win. I'm going to rank order them as if I was a judge and what I would want personally.
I'll do the same, but I do think that means you do take the criteria in a little bit.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
But also I think maybe at the end, if we feel our winner is different from what we think will win, we could always say that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there's so many possibilities,
There are
but really
so many
we should just get on with it because it's 4 minutes.
So, I am going to flash to the screen in a moment.
Look.
Simon's going to have to turn away. I'm not sure I trust him. You need to watch him really closely while I do this. This is the book that I feel confident Simon will choose as his winner.
But we can't say why because then it might give it
away. I
away.
Can't say why.
Have you done it?
No, hang on. I just need to get it back in the pile.
Okay.
Okay, now I'm going to look away and I'm hoping that I'm going to do this.
I'm going to trust you that I think this is the one that Mum will predict as her winner.
Okay, are you ready?
There we go.
That's exactly what you do when we play board games.
What do you mean?
Sort of shuffle things around and make sure nobody can see your cards and things like that.
There's no fool.
So,
right. Are we doing them in order then?
So I think we are going to do them in reverse order. Do you want to go first?
I don't mind. It's your channel, so maybe you should go first. Or do you want me to go first as I'm guest? Oh, because we've got to think who's going to go first. Yeah, I'll go first because I'm fiction. You can go first.
Okay, that seems fair. Yeah.
So, aptly, as it's at the top, my sixth place book is Thunderclap by Laura Cummings. Now, this is a book all about the artist whose name I've completely forgotten.
Fabricius.
Thank you. And I for me, the reason that this is sixth is not a personal thing in terms of the writing, it's a personal thing in terms of taste. And what I have to say is, reading this shortlist, I've learned a lot about what I like and don't like in non-fiction, and what I tend to head to and what can win me over in non-fiction. That's been really interesting. I didn't vlog any of the process, and I kind of wish I had, because it was quite telling. But anyway, this book, I started reading it and I thought the prose was absolutely stunning. I think it's so beautifully written, but I didn't care about it at all, and I was really shocked. But I think it's because it's about art, and even though there are pictures in the book of some of the paintings, so you can see I've kept a space there with my
that's his self-portrait, isn't it? Yeah.
But throughout the book there's pictures, like there's one lovely piece that she writes about a painting that was at her school that I really enjoyed, and you saw the picture, but when I didn't see the pictures I wasn't getting anything from it, and so
not even the story about her father.
I just wasn't invested. It's a real shame, because and I think they're also, and this could be quite awkward if I meet Laura Cummings in the coming days, I had the same thing with On Chapel Sands when I read her previous book, where it's something I should have really been invested in, but I think maybe her writing just isn't personally for me. So it's not, I can see why this could win. I can see why loads of people like it. Books about art and me, I think, are just not meant to be. But then I was hoping that this would be the book that might shift that, and it didn't for me. But I thought, but this is where I was in such a pickle, because I was like, her writing is beautiful. It just isn't resonating with me in that way. I can admire it, but I don't love it.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's fine.
So sorry.
Well, nice.
I think I will say it's a stunning book in terms of like the
production of it
and everything. And I think
it's lovely to hold the size.
One thing I will say, this has caused a bit of a conversation at one of the charities I work for, Share the Vision, where how this relays to a partially or visually impaired person is really tricky, because the pictures aren't described enough. So if you don't have the pictures to look at, it's quite interesting. Anyway,
that's interesting, because I wouldn't have picked up on that. I felt she did describe them.
And I thought she did, but I'm just thinking I could see some of them, whereas I couldn't, and I struggled when I couldn't see the other ones.
Okay.
Sorry, moving on.
No, I get that. I think it's a really important point.
Laura.
So my sixth choice is Doppelgänger by Naomi Klein, and I actually think this might win. I've got a feeling in my water that this might win it. And I'm really glad I've read this book. I enjoyed it. It's the story of her. Naomi Klein discovered that on social media she was being confused with Naomi Wolf, who was a sort of big sort of feminist, wrote a lot, I think, about the body and things like that, in the 80s. And they have been confused a little bit over the years, because they're both journalists, they're both political, etc., similar sort of age, slightly similar in appearance maybe. And I think it was during lockdown, it's a while since I read this, but I think it was during lockdown she realised that she was being confused on social media. And not only that, somebody sent her a text message, sent a message on something like Instagram and referred to her as Naomi Wolf. So she was getting so fed up with this, she messaged this, I think it was this man back, and said, actually, I think you mean Naomi Klein. And he was really embarrassed, because he realised that it was an autocorrection that had brought up her name. And that really freaked her out, I think. She sort of felt
I'd forgotten about that autocorrection bit.
Yeah,
that's why I did that.
Yeah. And
because I thought it was more sinister than that.
Well, it becomes more sinister because Naomi Wolf becomes a conspiracy theorist. She gets linked in with some very, very controversial politics in America. She's involved with Steve Bannon, who is from my point of view, absolutely bonkers voice for unreason in the American political system.
Bonkers
Just
Bannon.
putting it out there. So, I think there's a genuinely really important story being told here about identity. And I think it's brilliantly structured. I absolutely love the way, because Naomi Klein is from a Jewish background, and I love the way that she brought it right back round to the situation in Gaza and Israel at the moment. So I thought structurally it was really, really clever. I loved some of the tangents that she went on. So I didn't know all about the history of Asperger, that the Asperger's syndrome is named after. So there was some really, really wonderfully educational moments in this book. My big problem with it personally is that I just felt sometimes I drifted because it was a little bit too, not academic's not the right word, but I didn't feel it was accessible all the way through. So I drifted away occasionally. What are you grinning at? You're grinning. I want to know why. So that's why it's my 6th choice, Simon.
Okay. Well, funny enough, it's my 5th choice,
Ah.
Louise. And I have some similar... I was really nervous about this book. And I just thought,
Why
I know
are you
she's got
nervous?
such big brain energy.
Yeah,
I thought, I'm not
okay.
going to be clever enough for whatever Naomi Klein's got to say, no matter how accessible she makes it. And I did occasionally feel like that, where I was like, I'm not quite on the same intellectual level as her. Which actually I found, it's hard that, because like, I don't think I'm daft. I'm aware I'm not like super academic, but it can make you feel a little bit inferior to the writing. And it's a really odd feeling that, which took me out of it. Also, I felt a little bit, I agree with everything you say, I did feel it lost what its original purpose was. I felt that.
It was almost like she was over-egging the whole Doppelganger theme, the Jekyll and Hyde and the...
I was really intrigued to know more about the original part of it, and I do like the way it spiralled out. I thought, you know, the way that you talked about how it came back to what's going on currently with Israel and Gaza, very, like, it comes right to the fore of what's going on, but I did feel often I was quite at a distance. And I tried to listen to it on audio, and that didn't work. And but then I decided not to listen to any of them on audio after I tried to, because I didn't feel like it was fair. Because if the narrator isn't for you, it puts you off the book.
It's a very different experience.
And Naomi, I would say, there are some authors who can really narrate, and with Naomi, it was quite. I felt like I was listening to a robot sometimes, which is quite odd considering the subject matter of the book. But yeah, I mean, did I enjoy this book? I'm glad I read it.
I think I read it like I might have read something on a reading list at university.
I did.
I got a lot out of it.
This felt a bit like homework as well sometimes.
Yeah.
Which I will say, none of the books, even Laura's, felt like this one did. Yeah.
But I think that's a really, really good way of expressing what I felt about it.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you.
But also, I will say, like, I'm glad that I got to it, and it hasn't necessarily put me off reading any of her other work. But I also, like I was saying, it's been a really interesting journey or adventure in non-fiction, working out what I do and don't like. Yeah. And I think she didn't quite win me over enough for me to be enjoying what she was writing about. That's what it was. Yeah. Not that I'm saying you have to enjoy everything you read, but you have to be invested. And I wasn't always. I was not drifting off, just felt like a bit at a distance.
And there was a little bit where I felt things were a little bit obfuscated.
Yeah. What was your fifth?
What am I? My 5th choice. Now I need to get this right because we haven't got these in order of our choices. Now my 5th choice,
I'm excited.
And I think this might be where we really sort of diverge, Simon. But my fifth choice was All That She Carried. Now again, I thought the concept behind the book and the writing on the whole were really, really interesting. So it tells a story, and I always get this wrong. I have to sort of look at, can you remember
the history of a bag?
It is the history of a bag, which is handed down from
generation
to generation in a family, and the family originates in slavery.
Yes. And
so the Tiya Miles, who again is an academic, isn't she? She investigates the story of the bag, but she also looks at other items that slaves have sort of passed down from one generation to the next, because of course they weren't allowed to own anything. So the whole concept of ownership is really interesting and very, very poignant. And I loved the stories of the small things in this book. And it did enlighten me a lot about slavery in that part of America, and the sort of, again, the kind of colonial impact which we all know about, but it was just because we were looking at these very sort of tiny objects, it was really poignant. I unfortunately found the introduction I found it dull. Once I started reading the book, I was much more invested in it, but I feel I've got to read the whole thing.
See, I read the introduction at the end.
Yeah, well, maybe.
And I've always done this, even, you know, when you get fiction and it's got a new introduction by, I always feel like it either gives things away or doesn't quite, it almost leads you to read a book in a certain way.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, that's just random.
No, I think it's true. So I just again, I read it and I cared about the subject matter and I found it interesting, but occasionally I just found the prose maybe a little bit dry. Is that harsh?
Interesting.
Yeah. So there we are. All that she carried. That was my choice number 5.
So my choice number 4 is Codependent by Madhumita Murgia. And this is, I think, brilliantly written. It's all about AI. It's like ChatGPT. It's basically, another one I was nervous of this because one, I thought it would go over my head. It didn't. I think the way that she writes this is incredibly accessible. And actually, I think it's kind of important reading for everyone. But again, it was the subject matter. I wasn't as invested. What I loved is it terrified me sometimes, and I think it needs to but it doesn't. It's not a doom and gloom book. It's quite.
Well, it looks at the positive side.
It's quite practical without being fanciful.
My lord!
If you know, do you know what I mean?
What did you eat last night?
I just far too much pizza. But yeah, I really like to write. I wasn't looking forward to reading this at all.
No.
So actually, the fact that it's come 4th, I think, like for me, I was thinking this would possibly be number 6. But again, it's that thing where I felt I wanted more heart to it. I wanted it to have a bit more. That.
Ooh,
do you know what I mean? No.
Maybe.
Oh gosh, is this your number 1? Oh good lord. Oh no, we're not going to speak again. But yeah, no, I did think it was brilliantly written, very accessible, original. I just again was just a bit not so sure about the subject. I think because also I'm really working a lot around AI and stuff at the moment. Yeah. It's something that I'm hearing about a lot, so it felt again like I was turning to something that was a bit more worky.
Yeah, I get that.
So there we go.
Now where are we? Number 4 now.
Yeah.
So my number 4 was Thunderclap, which again I thoroughly enjoyed. I do like writing about art and I like writing about art, not me writing it. I like reading about art is probably a better way of putting it. And I thought I might, I thought I might get bored of this. Perhaps because it's exploring Dutch art specifically. I absolutely loved it. I really, really enjoyed it. I do think it's beautifully written.
It is really beautifully written.
I did enjoy the way that the paintings are looked at in such depth, and I thought that the story she told about her father was interesting and not maudlin. You know, she could have really sort of made it much more emotive than she did.
But I think I wanted that.
Oh, you see, I liked the way that it was told, not at a distance. That's not quite right. But the style of her writing didn't particularly. There was kind of like a thunderclap moment. There was a shift in tone when she started talking about her father, but I didn't feel like the style changed too much, and I really actually liked that because I felt that she was exploring it.
That's so interesting because I was left distanced by it. That was my problem. I wanted, and I think that's where I was talking about with Codependent. I think even with non-fiction or fiction, I need to be emotionally invested.
I wanted more of his paintings in here. I think there's only one picture, I think, if I remember rightly, there's only one picture of her father's painting. And actually I think I sort of explored online. There isn't very much online either. There's a few. So it did leave me with a curiosity as well, which I think is positive.
Yeah. But this is why it's so nice that we've both done the shortlist, because I think if I'd done a video on just the shortlist without you, mine might be a bit more. I think I've probably been a bit critical over both prizes anyway this year, more than usual. But I think both prizes, we've not done this one before, but you know what I mean? I think with non-fiction, I find it very intimidating as a genre. I don't head to it very often.
No, I don't.
Weirdly,
either.
When I love it, it's some of my favourite.
Yeah, I would
That'll
agree
be some
with
of my
that.
favourite books. Anyway, my third book is All That She Carried by Tiya that Mum's talked about already. And I loved so much this. I didn't read the introduction at the start because I never do. I had to step backwards. I think what Tiya Miles has done here is really clever because she's focusing on these what seem like tiny objects, tiny moments, but she's building this incredible story as you go, and you become.
Well, she's bringing their significance back, isn't she?
Well, also the people, she's bringing back voices.
Yeah,
that I think is really good, and that's something that I really love in non-fiction. Is when I feel like actually it's the same with fiction. Actually, I don't know why. I always, in my brain, pit them against each other a little bit, but both in fiction and non-fiction, I love it when I feel like the voices that weren't heard in history are suddenly getting a chance to speak, and this, I think, is a prime example of that. I will say, occasionally, I felt it was a tiny bit research heavy, and I felt that took me out of it a bit.
Yeah, it read a bit like a dissertation, I thought.
Yeah, and I think I love narrative non-fiction, and when this felt like it was more narrative, I was totally with it.
I'd agree.
Whereas sometimes I felt like, oh, you didn't need to tell me all of that, because it's kind of like, I don't know, I'm so invested already, I don't need to know some of the, but then it's a history that isn't known, like, we should be told all of it, if you know what I mean.
And also, I would say one of the things I wouldn't like to give the impression that I think women should be writing really academic, intellectual books. I'm not, you know, I wouldn't want anyone to think that I was opposed to that, for goodness sake.
I don't think anybody's going to think that, because you're an academic classicist, so.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. But you know, so I think yeah, I'd hate to give that impression, but we're talking about a prize here, and we're talking about accessibility.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think we have to take that into consideration.
I'm very glad that this was put in my path thanks to the prize, because I wouldn't have headed to it. I don't think I'd have heard about it otherwise, actually. I'm not sure it would have been on my radar, so I'm really, really grateful to that. And again, that's why I love prizes, because you end up heading to lots of books, generally, that you really enjoy. But I'll say they might. Yeah, that's my third. Okay. So that means we've got two in the top three that are the same.
Yes,
that's really
we
interesting.
Have. So my third choice is A Flat Place by Noreen Masud, which was one of the ones I don't think when I did my own shortlist, I don't think I included it, but I think it really tore me up not to, because it was really hard, because I thought the long list was exceptional.
Can I say you said something controversial that I think you should say again?
What did I say?
That you think it's one of the best long lists you've ever read.
Oh yeah, no, I absolutely did. I just, yeah, without a doubt. It was a complete education for me reading that long list, and I'm hoping that I'll do it again next year. So, oh, okay. So A Flat Place by Noreen Masud. So this starts off in Pakistan. That's right, isn't it? Yeah. Where Noreen lived until she was about 15 or 16. And it starts off with her journey to school across these flat expanses, beautiful countryside. And it's one of the few places where Noreen feels comfortable on that journey. She doesn't feel comfortable at school, she doesn't feel comfortable at home, but in that sort of transition space, she feels comfortable. And this kind of, I don't think she realises it at the time, but it becomes a trigger for her loving and actually seeking out flat landscapes, because she ends up being pulled out of that home life because she's got a very, very difficult father, and the mother takes the children out of Pakistan, takes them back to Scotland. I think that's right, isn't it?
Yes.
Where
my brain's doing it, because she goes all over the place.
She does go all over the place. And so once she's in Scotland, Noreen starts to seek out these flat landscapes, and the way she writes about landscape is wonderful, especially because I'm a mountain person and a hill person.
Doesn't really like
I don't like Norfolk. It's really controversial. I've been to Norfolk several times to try and like it, and I don't like it. And I feel I should, I'm sorry, apologies to anyone who lives in Norfolk. But I just struggle.
At a conference for librarians in Norfolk recently. I'll never be invited back.
The sky's too big. The sky is too big. So.
Can I ask a question? You know, when you're at the sea, and if you've got just sea ahead of you, does the sky feel too big then? Do you feel like you need a cove around you?
It looks like possibility to me.
That's so interesting.
I don't know, it's that interesting, but
I think it is.
So I mean, you know, we lived in Wiltshire for years, and the sky was all wrong. I mean, there's hills there. I've got an issue with sky and clouds. Clearly, don't know.
How do you feel about the Wirral?
Love the Wirral. So so for me, so I started reading this thinking I'm not going to get on with this book because it's about flat places. But the way she writes, I actually want to seek some flat places out now and look at them in a different way.
She's on her way.
But the other thing about this book, it explores her relationship with her mother in a very affecting way, and it also looks at a very specific form of PTSD, which Noreen later discovers that she's suffering from, which again is kind of played out through these flat environments. I just thought it was absolutely beautifully written. I almost read it cover to cover. I couldn't put it down. I think it's a stunning piece of writing.
So now I'm down to my final two, and I will say this is really hard because I love both of these books. Like, yeah, they're going to be in my, well, I was going to say my top non-fiction books the year in. Well, these are the only ones that I've read. But the whole thing has also made me want to read a lot more non-fiction this year. And in second place for me is A Flat Place. Everything you said I agree with. I think the writing is brilliant. The way you're so with her. And I love the way she writes about place and how important place is to you, and that sense of security that you can get within a place, but also how certain places have trauma for you. So, and I thought, yeah, I think this is so beautifully written, and if this won, I'd be absolutely chuffed a bit. So I know where it's a bit shadowy. Also, I think my cover's nicer. Just saying.
I do like the green though.
But yeah,
well, I'm wearing the green, aren't I?
I just thought her writing was absolutely phenomenal, and I felt like I don't want to go back to the word journey, but I felt like I was on a journey with her, and I thought it was a very generous book to write, probably an incredibly difficult book to write, but to share her story and her experiences with you as a reader. I'm not going to say it maybe changed me, but I definitely think I will think about this book a lot. And yeah, I didn't want it to end. It was one of those, which is really odd because I've not had that with non-fiction very much. But yeah. So anyway, but now we all know what my favourite is. But we're waiting to find out what yours is. I wonder if we're going to match this year.
So my number two.
Oh, this is going to be controversial. Really?
Is How to Say Babylon by Safiya Sinclair.
I think
I thought this was again wonderful. It was unputdownable. She is a poet, Safiya, and is it Safiya or Safiya?
I thought it was Safiya, but it could be Safiya.
It could be Safiya.
So apologies.
Yeah, apologies. I'm not
sure.
Safiya.
Safiya.
But I think this book is absolutely stunning, and I just loved it from the minute it opened. I realised I didn't know anything about the Rastafari really.
I think it is Safiya. I'm going back because I listened to a sample of it.
Okay.
Anyway, sorry.
And she tells her own story basically of her upbringing in a Rastafari household, the very, very difficult relationship. And again, it's like A Flat Place in that sense, because she appears to be, and I believe she is, being brutally honest about her feelings towards particularly her father, but also her mother, because she's very critical of her own upbringing. And I think that's a very difficult space to hold and then to share with the rest of the world. So I think this book is an act of bravery. It's the writing is breathtakingly beautiful, and it's I was educated by it as well, which I think non-fiction should do. I think you should walk away from a non-fiction book knowing a lot more than you did before you started reading it, because it is a memoir. And potentially it could just have been her life story, and that's an education in itself, I suppose. But I learned so much about, the background to Rastafarianism, and particularly really interested in how her mother got involved in the whole movement. So I would not be remotely disappointed if this won. I would completely understand. And I think it's really difficult this year, because I think any one of those books, I mean, we probably say that every year, I don't know, but there isn't,
it's almost a little bit like fence sitting, but we're genuinely not.
Yeah, I think you can see you could build a case for any single one of them, a really good case.
I might not agree with it, but I can see the case behind
exactly.
it.
I think they all every single book here merits being on the shortlist.
I think every book fights for its place on the list as well, actually. I think that's what I felt when I was reading them.
Yeah. So there we are. That was my second choice.
Which is, because there's no other choices, my number one choice. And what you just said, I think, is where it, for me, edged it over a flat place, because I felt like I was getting someone's story and their history and learning a lot about them. This felt like education by stealth, if that makes sense, because I learned so much. I didn't realise how new the Rastafarian movement had been.
No, I
that
didn't.
really surprised me. The story of her father and how, kind of why he ends up a bit like he is broke my heart. There was a scene, I don't think it's too much to give away to say he's abandoned. It absolutely broke me, that. And I think the whole way through I would be gasping at some of the facts that I'd hear, but also then I'd be going, is this really that recent? That was...
And how trapped she is.
Yeah.
You know, like her whole... But you really get a sense of how right into her 20s she's kind of trapped in this household. It's yeah, it is. And I just think her writing is absolutely stunning, and I think, you know, you can tell she's... But I had the pleasure of reading Cannibal, which is one of her poetry collections, and I just think she's an absolute talent and one to... I'd be really interested to see what she writes next. I kind of wanted to write a novel. I mean, is she 30 yet?
I don't know. I haven't done any internet. Well, I've done a mild bit of internet stalking her because she's iconic. But I just, for me, this had everything that I want in a non-fiction book, in the fact that I did learn a lot. I was massively invested. The writing was incredible. I felt emotionally connected to it. And it just gave me an insight. One of the things that I love is when books, be it fiction or non-fiction, gives you insight into a completely different world from your own, and doesn't always ask you to agree with it or disagree with it, but asks you to understand it. And I think actually I felt I was being asked to understand it as she was trying to understand it herself sometimes, or contextualise it, or to almost, again, weirdly, I was going to say have a slight distance from it, but in a good way. Distance is a really interesting thing, because sometimes if I read non-fiction there's a distance, I'm totally not with it. And other times I think there's a real reason for it. It's why I didn't like Educated by Tara Westover, because I always felt she was holding back from me, and I kind of feel like maybe it's me as a demanding reader, but I got what I wanted with this, where I don't want to feel like anything's being hidden. What's the point of writing if you're going to not tell it all? Anyway, so that's my number one, and I will be upset if it doesn't win, so there we are.
Are we going to go back to our predictions?
Well, next year says why your number one was your number one.
Okay, so
I think that's very important. Louise.
This has clearly shocked Simon that I've chosen Codependent by Madhumita Murgia. And I'm quite surprised myself. I can't lie.
When did you decide?
Well, after I'd read it.
Oh, really?
Because
we were talking about distance yesterday.
Yeah.
We literally haven't talked, when I say that, we haven't talked about our rankings at all, but we did yesterday say it's very interesting how books change, your opinion changes
exactly
over time.
Yeah, they do. So the thing about this, and I don't know whether this shaped my response to it, but I really did not want to read this book. I left it till last. It was the final one that I picked up because I couldn't face it, especially because of my feelings about Doppelganger. You know, I'd got a bit bogged down in that at times, and I thought, oh God, another book about, you know, not social media, but artificial intelligence, kind of, you know, it's all in that sort of sphere in my digital world in my head. So I was really reluctant to read it. And actually, when I picked it up, the only thing I could think of was that it was short. I'm like, come on, Louise, you can do this. You know, it's not going to take you too long. And I got completely sucked into it because I think it's really, really clever. It's a series of case studies, and each one is so extremely different from the other, and she's looking at the impact of artificial intelligence in the workplace. She's looking at the way that artificial intelligence is exploitative, and how there's kind of a pyramid. You know, you've got the rich at the top making all the money out of it, and then the sort of almost like slavery at the bottom. She sort of compares it with the fashion industry and the children being forced into labour, etc., etc. So it's a deeply political book, and I like my politics, but it centres around really human stories.
But I didn't feel attached to the people.
See, I really did. So So, you know, when she talks about the family in Holland, in the Netherlands, in Amsterdam, there's this program, I think it's called Pro Kid, and the Dutch police set up this program for really, really good moral, social reasons. They're trying to predict which children are more likely to go on to commit crime as they get older, so that they can put preventative measures in place. So the thinking behind it is compassionate, I think, and sort of, you know, and actually what they end up doing is complete, you know, Madhumita focuses on this particular family. It's a single parent family with, is it 3 sons or 2 sons and a daughter? I can't quite remember. And one of the sons is picked out for this program, and then the second one is, and it absolutely destroys these 2 boys' lives, and their sister's life is deeply affected by it as well, because it leads to, you know, it's clear that they're partly picked out because of their race, and so all these sort of positive intentions become catastrophically destructive. And I was enraged, I was bitter, I was, you know, this book took me on a real sort of emotional roller coaster that I wasn't expecting. And you're right when you say it's not a doom and gloom book. I would say probably on balance she's got more to say that's negative and concerning about the world of AI.
I'd say it's 60-40.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair.
Maybe 65.
But equally she looks at things like, you know, the potential of AI in the world of medicine, and so on. So I just feel that this is a book that we should all be reading. You know, I felt...
Can I just say, I did say that?
Yeah, no, you don't. Well, you don't need to be apologetic. You know, you don't need to. I just felt this was a book that made me look at the world that I inhabit differently. So I felt it was really contemporary. I felt, you know, she's the other thing she does, which is different perhaps to the other books, is that she takes you to all different points on the globe. And I thought that was really clever, because this is a global issue, you know, and she demonstrates the global sweep of that brilliantly as well. So it you know, none of us can afford, it doesn't matter where you live, you could live in some really remote place in Africa and this is still affecting you, because you might be one of the people. I mean, when she went to investigate the people who are doing the content moderation for explicit images on social media, I mean, that was, it was so grim. And you know, I was aware that this was a thing because I'd read a novel about it actually. I can't remember what that was called.
Delete this post, do not delete this post.
Yeah, that one.
Something like that.
You know, so I kind of knew that was happening, but I didn't, in the novel, that was a conscious choice that the character had made to go and work in that space.
But for some people it's a job
Whereas
to survive.
And they didn't even know why they don't even know why they're doing it. They're just given these images to look at. And I just, I mean, I can't, I'm finding it hard to breathe talking about it now, because I just found it so deeply shocking that you've got people in other parts of the world who probably don't even have a mobile phone themselves, who are being expected to moderate the behaviour of people, largely speaking, in the Western world. I just thought this was great. I did. I really liked it.
And I did like it. And I think, weirdly, you talking about it's made me like it a little bit more. Maybe I should have put it in my third. I don't know. I think, like I was saying, this has shown me I am much more... I wonder if I felt like I didn't get emotionally invested because it was snapshotty. Like, not
maybe.
Snapshotty, whereas I kind of...
Whereas I felt that was its strength,
for
that
me,
you were moving across...
It's more the memoirs that have risen to the top for me.
Yeah.
I'm not, clearly so. But I think also, like, I don't know, one thing that I love with non-fiction, when I read about a subject that I don't think I care about, and I do, and she does make you care more. But I also read it straight after Doppelganger. So I wonder if I was a bit
perhaps saturated,
digitaled out.
Yeah. So do you want to pull out the book that you thought I would choose as my winner, and I'll pull out the book that I thought you would choose? See, that's really interesting, because that was my second choice. Yeah.
So there we go.
Yeah.
Which means on balance, this one will win.
Well, yeah. I mean, it could well do, couldn't it?
But I think it's been interesting to do. I think I found this year a little bit as not doing the same. Long list has been weird.
Yeah, I missed it a bit.
Yeah.
I did miss it.
And I wanted to ask you, are there any books on the long list that you wish were in the shortlist, or you felt like could have been? Because I felt like you had a bit of a thing for Matrescence.
I loved Matrescence. Lucy Jones, I thought that was an absolutely superb book. I think that should have been there. I loved what was it called? The one about the Philippines. That was a series of case studies, actually. What's that called?
Is that the one?
Some People Want to Kill Me, or Some People Need Killing.
Yeah.
I thought that was incredible. I'm trying to think now. Oh, I loved the one about George Orwell, Wifedom. I was really shocked that wasn't on the
I want to read that
shortlist. And
but it shows how
oh
great...
god, there was another one that I shortlisted and I can't think what it was off the top of my head that I also really loved. It's gone. It's a while ago, you see.
Because it's interesting, because I've not read any of the ones that haven't been shortlisted. So are there any that you think that I would like out of that group? I mean, Matrescence I'm a little bit perturbed by, because as I saw in your video, there's my DNA floating around my brother and my sister, which is probably all very weird.
Yeah. No, but I loved it. It's beautifully. It's beautifully written.
I think Wifedom
she's really
really
talented.
Too.
Yeah, I think you'd enjoy Wifedom.
I think,
definitely.
When it comes out in paperback, what's the one that's the history of? Is it the history of part of Asia?
The Philippines one.
No, that's the one about.
Oh,
the
yes,
really massive
the massive. What's it called?
But then I say that, and I know probably realistically
something about shadows. Honestly, in my brain, no, it's not.
Anyway,
I can't remember. I know exactly the book you mean. I can't. Oh, and I absolutely loved the Young Queens one. Really loved that. I love my history. So anyway, thank you, Simon, very much for that wonderful experience. I've really enjoyed it. I hope you've all enjoyed it.
I've just seen Elif Shafak love this, and I love Elif.
Yeah.
So that's made me like it even more.
So anyway, happy reading, everybody. I hope you do. You know, if you haven't read any of the non-fiction shortlist, I really hope you do pick something up there. I hope we've piqued your interest in one or two of those books.
And you'll know soon if either of us or neither of us were right.
Absolutely, you will. Yeah, because it will be tomorrow, won't it, when this video goes out? Yeah, absolutely.
And if you haven't seen it already, because mine's going out a day before yours, we'll have talked about the fiction shortlist and our rankings and top spots over on my channel. We will. So take care, everybody. Thank you for watching. Bye. Oh, I've gone wrong. Bye. Bye. It's like a window wiper. That's lovely. That's. We dance moves. No, I'm not doing any dancing.